What's the most cked up thing you've overheard someone say in public? I was in line for a scary ride at a theme park. A little boy was in the row next to me, in hysterics about not wanting to get on. His father was visibly angry, kept calling the boy a pussy and telling him to man up. It was the first time they had gone when the boy was tall enough to ride, but it was clear he wasn't mature enough to actually enjoy it. When it came time for them to board, the man dragged the kid to his seat and buckled him in while the kid was screaming. Why they didn't remove them both I'll never understand. About 5 years ago I was working at a car dealership. Elderly man and middle-aged man are sitting at a table in the lounge area near my counter. Younger says to the older, "You don't need any of that stuff. The doctors are just trying to take all your money. When it's your time, it's your time." Salesman comes over and greets the old man a moment later and says, "Name. Let's get these papers signed and your son can drive you home in his new truck." I don't do the story justice, but once I realized this young guy was getting his dad to buy him a new truck at the same time trying to not have him get medical treatment, I was sad and angry. At a soccer match during high school, random girl was yelling at her boyfriend when she screams out, "I'll duck your dad and give him a child he actually loves." I don't think their relationship survived. Driving a cab and pick up a couple from a pub. They were very into each other, practically standing dry humping the taxi rank. I ask them where they want to go and he rattles off an address for his place. We set out and 5 minutes into the drive, she suddenly breaks from thigh tonsil hockey and asks him, "Wait a second, isn't your wife home right now?" He is shocked and acknowledges that yes, she is indeed at home and likely asleep. Asks if they can stop at her place. No good. Hubby is home too. Fast forward to us being parked at a local lover's lane. I am waiting nearby having a smoke while they go wild in the backseat of the taxi. Yes, the meter was still running. And yes, I charged them the cleanup fee. Once on a train, I heard a woman talking at length to her friend about how her on again, off again boyfriend of 11 years had gotten married during one of their off periods but had it annulled just days later and also had a tattoo of another woman's name from years ago. She even mentioned that he drove with that arm out the window to try to fade the tattoo. She was peeved that he married one woman, got a tattoo of another one's name, but she had nothing to show for it, so she was convincing him to buy her a house. She was currently in a combined MA-PhD program which provided free housing but had no intention of completing it. She was just doing it because her on again off again boyfriend was subsidizing her while she was still in school. Her plan was to wait until he bought her a house, drop out of grad school, secretly stop taking birth control, get pregnant, and then even if he broke up with her, she'd still get child support. It felt like a soap opera and I never heard anything so calculated. Especially knowing that this woman was smart enough to be in a PhD program but didn't know when to walk away from a really messy relationship. I watched as two church staff people ejected 2 homeless men into the freezing cold on Christmas Eve. The men were quietly and respectfully observing the service from a pew at the back of the sanctuary. I followed them out and never went back. I used to drive for Uber part-time. Once I picked up a couple around midnight or so on a Thursday. They spent the entirety of the ride trying to decide what their story was going to be when they told their significant others what they were doing. I know in the grand scheme of things it is as ducked up as others, but for me I can't even wrap my head around that way of thinking, let alone just talk about it nonchalantly. I took a speech class in college and randomly the teacher started ranting about how the Holocaust never happened and how it was a conspiracy propped by the government despite all the information that exists proving it didn't happen. At first we thought it was him showing some point about making speeches, until it just kept going. A couple people spoke up and he dug in. Eventually the class got up and walked out. We had a new teacher next class. I was in a movie theater and I heard a guy talking to his dad behind me and talking about his friends, and he mentioned one was black and the dad was like, "What did I tell you about hanging out with those people?" And the son replied, "He is basically a white guy in every other way, like might as well be white." She made me hella uncomfortable and the movie wasn't even that great. Oh well. I live in Nick. Was on a downtown D train minding my business. A woman and a man, nondescript mid-50s, were sat behind me. The woman proceeded to casually tell the man that her father was a butcher for the Gotties and that it was honest work. She obviously could have been insane, but the nonchalant and matter-of-fact way she said it made me feel like she was being 100% serious. I worked for one of the largest litigation firms in North America at the time. They had very high-level connections in a DC office. Two partners got in the elevator talking about House of Cards, how it mirrors reality, and literally is above criticism because if given power everyone on the planet would behave the same. Then they shifted to overpopulation myths in the same breath. No self-awareness at all. My blood was boiling. Quit that place 3x. This was kind of funny but also sad. Waiting in a really long line to vote in the US primaries. Apparently so many people showed up to vote that they ran out of those little I voted stickers. Two women walking out together, grumbling about the lack of stickers, and one whined, I know. What's the point of voting if you don't even get a sticker? I was in a rural business once and overheard two employees talking. They were both senior in high school, freshmen in college aged. One asked the other how it felt that her dad was getting married. She said it's weird cause I'm older than her. 20 years ago, when having a cell phone was a big thing, I was sitting outside the community college I was going to and having a smoke. This lady walked up, lit a cigarette, and started talking on her cell phone very loudly about an incredibly bad case of genital warts she was apparently suffering from. Well dear, I don't care what your thoughts are. I banged your cousin and she is a fire crotch. I'm not sure how that phone call ended, but I remember passing the guy leaving a restaurant and trying not to die laughing. Edit, holy hell, a lot of you laughed at this too. I'm glad. We were at a cheesecake factory, my cousin and I, and heard this as we passed a table to leave. I'm glad you're all as entertained as we were. This may be the highest voted comment I've ever gotten, all because I was listening to random conversations. Me, in the main girls' bathroom at school, doesn't have a class this hour, so taking my sweet time on the shitter, walks past a group of 5 girls sitting on top of the sinks, skipping class because we only have male hall monitors and they are not legally allowed to check the girls' bathrooms for missing students. I sit down to do my business and they're talking about pregnancy. And like I'm in high school, I'm a senior, but most of these girls looked like small children. Okay, they were obviously freshmen, MYBE sophomores. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening as one girl says, yeah, it's getting so irritating that my mom won't let me get pregnant, but like it's okay because she's a hoe, and she says that if she gets pregnant again I can raise it like it's mine, and her friends all MHM and oh yeah, that's a good idea, in agreement. And I'm sitting there in the bathroom stall trying not to start laughing at how abominably stupid that sounds. And they just keep talking about how they're also ready to be mothers and how they just can't have babies because their parents won't let them. A desiccated First Wives Club member to some 20-something millennials, you can't just file for divorce. That's stupid. You have to provoke an argument with your husband, call the cops and start crying when they show up. Trust me, that won't look good for him in front of the divorce judge and you'll have a much easier time keeping the house. That's not verbatim, but that's basically what she said. Nick, waiting to cross a busy street. Woman next to me dressed very professionally, having full-on phone sex with her man on speaker while also scrolling through Amazon. Really impressive multitasking skills, honestly. At a restaurant, 2 guys sat at a table beside me. She can't even cook, she can't even do much housework, probably wouldn't know how to make a decent cup of tea either. What is she asking for so much dowry? Loosely translated, I don't know the actual word in English for I'll kick her ass. I swear, women like that are useless. Not been raised correctly. They need to know their place. I had nightmares for days. Not really heard but seen and heard. I used to serve tables in college, and one Saturday night there was a party of 8 middle-aged men who were watching porn on a phone propped up on the wall on the opposite side of the table. The phone was visible to everyone walking by. The disturbing part was the age. These girls were no older than 16. I walked up, said hi, welcome, saw what they were watching and walked away. After I came back the video was off. Many years ago I was a cashier at Whole Foods and I saw a lady yell at her son to come eat. Praline. Come eat now, and the kid refused and said he wanted something chocolate. She then gave him the old slow counting to 3 routine parents do, and he eventually begrudgingly stomped over. The mother then proceeds to open her buttoned up plaid shirt all the way with no bra on underneath and presents her chest to Praline in my goddamn checkout lane and says something along the lines of, "You don't need any of that here," and points her, probably patchily scented, teat at the boy with her hand. The kid was old enough to just walk on over and latch on, hands free and all. A whole-ass kid, perhaps aged 7 to 10, just making direct eye contact at me while sucking on this lady's teat. All like it was totally ducking normal. I am bad at guessing ages, but the kid was tall and could fully communicate. Full set of teeth. Obviously well beyond learning to walk. Like a whole-ass kid close to middle school, I'd guess. Like a kid you'd hear say got any games on your phone kinda age. And I'm just scanning their groceries trying not to flip out and my bagger's face is blood red. Now I don't know much about kids and all, but I'm pretty sure that kid is gonna have heaps of issues. The mother was white lady with dreadlocks for added context. And I do hope Praline was just a nickname. I'll never forget that. On my way home from a New Year's party, I heard a couple of gangbangers talk about how they shot a guy earlier that night and laughing that he probably survived since he had a vest on. Read about said dude dying in the hospital the next day. The guys talking about it on the train was 18-20 years old. I was kinda a part of the conversation, but while partying at Bonnaroo in Tennessee, I asked a weird wizard looking guy how much for his staff, and he said, "All you gotta do is duck my wife," and the wizard was with a witch looking lady and she said in a low voice, she said, "And we'll supply the camera." Lol, I was tripping so ducking hard it freaked me out. Anyways, I'll never forgot that sheet. Walked past a Russian dude on the phone in Manhattan. Only overheard his side of the conversation, which was, "Bro, she had the biggest asshole. Way bigger than her sisters." I was at a physical rehab center in 2011, waiting for my brother to finish his appointment so that I could drive him home. They had the news playing in the waiting room, and the Japan tsunami footage was being shown. Some nurse immediately started bitching about, "Oh great, now we're gonna send them money. This awful person was literally watching people die on TV," and her first response was to bitch about not wanting to send aid to help survivors. A ducking nurse. I was at a diner, sitting next to a table with 4 police officers. One of the officers was talking about how his wife wanted to go back to school. All the other cops told him, "Don't let her, or she'll start thinking she's better than you and getting a mind of her own. Maybe even get higher paid job than you." They were all in agreement that this cop should not let his wife go to school. Forbid her from it. Control her. I got one of those animal instinct feelings, like the heebie-jeebies, like I was sitting next to truly evil humans. It was tough to finish my meal. When I was in high school, I remember sitting at a table next to a group of 6 kids who were apparently planning to go over to the next town over and steal some dealer's wheat up. These kids were infamous for terrorizing the special needs kids, but never actually had the gonads to pull something like armed robbery off, so I just ignored it. A few days later, it was all over the news about how the same group of kids ended up stabbing the dude. They were caught, but I feel guilty for not telling the school beforehand. Not ducked up. I was eating at Dennis with my boys after a night out. We were seated in the middle by the waiter and the restaurant wasn't too crowded at the time. A single new customer came, a guy with pretty casual homey attire. It looks like he spent his Friday night at home and went outside to grab a bite. He was seated in the middle too by the grumpy old waitress lady. I figured he has like a social anxiety cause he talked so quietly to the waiter lady and asked to be seated by the window. The waiter wasn't having it and she shouted so loud saying that he's giving her a hard time. "What's wrong with this table?" etc. His face turned red. The whole Dennis kinda pay attention to his table, and he replied, "I just don't wanna be the center of attention." Poor guy. I worked in the kitchen at Country Club a few years ago. The owner was extremely rich and had his own security detail. His head of security was an ex-cop who had been outed as being dirty. He served multiple years in prison. He had connections, from what I had heard, with the Aryan Brotherhood and also possibly the mob. Anyways, I joined him for a cigar after my shift one night. He was that kind of guy. Big tipper, always coming in the kitchen and tipping people. Hanging out with the help, so to speak. Anyways, we were smoking and him and his friend, were talking about one of the groomsmen at the wedding we were hosting that night. They both happened to know him. He had served time with him. Apparently he had murdered someone with a blowtorch. They were joking about it. I stayed away from him after that. Last night I was at work in my restaurant and one of my servers who had this party of 8 women came up to me last night and told me that one of the ladies said to her friends that I can't fly on any national airlines right now because I'm on Sarwatlist, which is basically her saying that she's a known or suspected terrorist.